Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of Mo Money, Mo Houses. I'm your host, Jessica Morehouse, and today I'm really excited to interview my next guest. Many of you may already know her if you're a big nerd and read personal finance blogs like I do, but her name is Bridget. She runs the blog Money After Graduation, and her blog's focus was a lot on, obviously, money after graduation. But what's interesting about her is she went to school, she worked a little bit, went back to school. And so we're going to be talking about school, student loans, and career, because similar to me, she went to school for one thing and is working in something completely different right now. Another thing we're going to talk about, which I'm really excited about, is investing, because she was one of the few female investing bloggers. So I'm really excited to talk to her about that. So hey, Bridget, thanks so much for being part of the program.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
You're welcome. I'm excited too. You honestly, you are one of the bloggers that I think kept up with your blog for the longest, just because I think we started up around the same time, though I think you may have had a blog before that. But you've had your blog.
I don't know. We feel like the originals. So.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be, but that's what I feel like. It's like you were kind of there when I was there, and it's kind of cool to see your blog, progress over all these years. So let's kind of get into it. Let's start kind of from the beginning, because I know I was recently on your blog and you wrote this really great blog post about kind of your story and where, like, how you got interested in personal finance and you growing up and all of that kind of stuff. So let's kind of start from the beginning with Bridget.
Okay, I know the post you're referring to, and I think I've mentioned before that it's something I'm just starting to share, like my childhood experience with money and how that's influenced my adult perspectives. Because for a long time, I was really embarrassed because I grew up fairly poor, not on the streets or anything, but my parents didn't have a lot of money. Neither of them finished high school. They both had kind of low-paying jobs, and our family really, really struggled with money. And then my parents got divorced, and money became a huge thing in the divorce too. So as far back as I can remember, money was always a huge stress in my life. Like, I remember worrying about it when I was like 9 years old and doing calculations on like my loose leaf paper with a calculator, worrying about money.
Really
and
young.
I was 9. Yeah.
That's unusual.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it was just that level of stress. And I still, I didn't understand a lot of like where money came from or what. I just understood that things costed money and we never really had enough of it. And we were always short money. And that was really hard for me growing up. But a lot of it is I didn't even realize that was unusual until probably I was in my 20s.
Oh, wow.
Because you grow up and you're like, oh, we don't have a lot of money, but no one else does. Every family struggles with money. This is just the way things are. And then I got to university and I realized that a lot of the families and the lifestyles that I thought were rich growing up were actually just middle class.
And interesting.
It was such a shocker. And I didn't understand that people got to go on vacations once a year to Disneyland. And I didn't understand that people had their educations paid for, their parents were paying their tuition. None of it made sense to me. And I was just like, wow, well, you must be super rich. And
I still kind of feel like that sometimes. It's like, how do you afford Disneyland once a year? Are you rich? But I'm just cheap.
It's true. It's true. And I was so surprised. And then eventually I realized that they weren't rich. I was just a little bit poor growing up. So what happened through then is I had to pay for my university education. I worked part-time as a server, and I took out student loans, and that's how I ended up with my massive student loan debt that inspired the blog.
Of course.
So I graduated owing almost $21,000. Wow. I think it was $20,586 I owed, and I was working part-time at the Apple Store, making, I think, $15 an hour.
That's a pretty good side job. I certainly did not make $15 an hour when I was working in university, but that's awesome.
Yeah, that's the other thing I should point out is I'm from Alberta, and everyone jokes, in Alberta, that streets are paved in gold and money just falls from the sky, which is true. We do have really high wages here. Even the minimum wages are high. There's lots of jobs to be had. And then there's lower taxes. So you do have a lot of advantages of being in Alberta. So even though my situation was hard, I understand it probably wasn't as hard as other graduates or students experienced in other provinces.
So you graduated with like $20,000 in debt, but was it a hard time for you to find a job after graduation, or?
Yeah, it was actually horribly hard. This was a wake-up call to me. So I finished a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry, and I loved chemistry. I love science, but much to my dismay, no one wanted a new chemist. There were just no jobs for chemists when I graduated. A few of my friends moved out east and they got jobs in Toronto for things like paint companies. But there was really nothing in Edmonton or in Alberta for me. And that was really hard, that I felt that I had worked so hard and spent all this money on this degree so I could get a better job than my parents. And then there was nothing. So I actually ended up doing 1 year of grad school in a master's of science, hoping that would make me more employable. Again, there was a little bit of a benefit to that in Alberta because I was actually paid a stipend, which was enough to live on and have some extra money. So I did that. I got 1 year into it and I'm like, I can't do this. I hate working at a lab bench. What was I thinking? And I dropped out a year into my master's.
You know, actually, I know someone who similarly did that. She did I think it was a biology undergrad, and then her kind of plan was to, I guess, be a biologist or whatever. Yeah. And so she did her master's, but I think she quit halfway through because she's like, I do not like doing this. I thought I did, but I like learning it, but I don't actually like working in a lab. But
yeah, it's so different than what you learn in the textbook. Science is really hard. I have a great admiration for people that make it through and actually do research because it is like a mentally and emotionally challenging job.
So, and then, what happened after that?
I actually ended up getting a job at the university that I'd been working at. And so I ended up in the Faculty of Engineering because they needed a girl that would promote science and engineering. So I ended up in recruitment, and it was such a fantastic job. I loved everything about it. I loved like getting women interested in science and engineering. I loved working with the undergrads, and it was an awesome job. I think my starting salary was $50,000, and I had like a crazy pension, full benefits, and I only worked 35 hours a week. Wow. And then the summers were pretty slow. Yeah, it was like a dream job.
That is like a dream job for a new grad, for sure. For sure.
It was the most amazing job. I loved every minute of it. I actually managed to pay off my whole student loan.
Oh, wow.
While I was in that job. So the $20,000 was gone in 2 years at that job. And then I was like, well, cool. I have a great job. I'm totally out of debt. I've saved some money. I've traveled a little bit. I'm going to quit.
As you do. When everything's working out, you make it more chaotic, of course.
Yeah. And so, because what had actually happened is during that time, I had started Money After Graduation, the blog. And I know I was reading yours all the time. And we were like the little group of Canadian female personal finance bloggers. And I think I even met you as well.
I remember you came to Vancouver and the Vancouver personal finance bloggers all met up with you.
Right, because that was the other perk of my job is I had to go to Vancouver twice a year.
Very nice.
So they always flew me out there. So I was in Vancouver and I met you. And so I'm writing this blog and I'm getting so into money and finance, like so into it, as I think all of us did that were blogging. And I started investing in the stock market. And that was like the most exciting thing for me. I just loved it. Like I could not get enough of this. And so I had this epiphany that I was totally in the wrong career and I needed to go into business. I wanted to work in investment banking and trade stocks for a living because I loved it that much.
Wow.
And so I decided to go back to school for an MBA in finance. And I wrote the GMAT, applied to a bunch of schools across Canada. I got in everywhere, so I kind of had my choice, but I ended up staying in Alberta, and I went to the University of Calgary for my MBA in finance, which I've just finished as of last week.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, 2 years later, I just wrote my last exam on May 6th, so
wow.
I am all finished. And I passed, so it's all good. I'm a newly minted MBA in finance.
And I just love that your blog is called Money After Graduation, because you graduated several times.
Yeah, I keep graduating.
You just keep graduating.
Yeah, that was the thing too. I'm like 2 years after, I'm like, am I still relevant? I'm way out of school. And you know what? I just got another degree.
Just keep going to school.
Again. Yeah, I can keep writing as long as I keep getting degrees.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story of money and how the blog came about and how I ended up where I am.
Yeah. So when you were doing your MBA, were you also working, or were you just in school full time?
I was in school full time for the first year. So this is actually one of the aspects that made me choose the program at Calgary. I really loved it that your first year is like normal classes, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. or whatever, Monday to Friday. But in your second year, your classes are in the evening, so you can actually work.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really awesome. So I just like went in, I did the first year, and the site was actually making some money, and I had a few like freelance projects to keep me afloat. I also got a huge entrance scholarship
that
to
always
Calgary. Yeah, so I should mention that as also like my first year was like super cushy, and it was awesome, and I just focused on school and went. And then the second year I actually did work full time through it while taking classes in the evening, which was hell.
Yeah, that sounds awful. Because like the only thing I have to compare to is I did a digital marketing certificate program at U of T, and it was just like one course a semester, and it was literally like one 4-hour class every Tuesday, and I was like exhausted.
But that's the worst. Like the last thing you want to do after a full day of work is go to school.
Yeah.
And so I had 2 classes per week, and then I also U of C has these crazy things called block week classes where you complete an entire course in 5 or 6 days at the start of semester.
That's
and
intense.
So I would take those. So I actually would take either unpaid leave or vacation time from my job the first week of the semester, pound out a class, and then go back to full-time work and night classes. Yeah, no, like the last year I almost died. It was the hardest.
You need a vacation, I think. A long one.
It's true. Yeah, no, so it was rough. So, but I do appreciate that I was able to work through the degree, and like I did choose an affordable school, and there was scholarships, so that made it considerably easier to manage my finance. And also I cared about finances this time around. Like when I did my undergrad, I just like got money and spent it.
Exactly.
But this time I was like careful. Yeah. Everything turned out all right, and we all survived.
Yeah. So was the job that you were doing full time while doing your second year of your MBA like your real job right now, or?
It is, yeah. So, well, in the summer, I completed a 4-month internship at a not-for-profit. And then after that ended, I got a job at a really cool small firm because, of course, I had another one of those epiphanies where I wanted to change my whole life on a whim. So when I was in one of those horrible block week classes that were 5 days, the first week of September, and at this time, the MBA in finance was already like starting to burn me out. I learned finance was hyper competitive and crazy. Like all my classmates are going to be stupid rich, but it's so competitive. It's like you either get promoted or get fired every 3 years.
That sounds awful.
And yeah, the atmosphere is just stressful. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to banking, this is really scary. Like I'm terrified. And so I took a block week class in what was called technology commercialization. And every morning the professor would lecture, and then every afternoon we would have guest speakers that were venture capitalists and entrepreneurs from Calgary. And these people would come in and they would tell these crazy stories of like, oh yeah, I built up this company from scratch and then I sold it for $10 million and it was so fun. I decided to go do it with another company. And I was sitting at my desk and I'm like, how is this a job?
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing. And it was so interesting and so cool. I just like decided right there, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do this. And I have no millions. I have no idea how to run a company, but I decided.
Not yet. You're young yet. So
I decided that was the job I wanted. And then like just sheer dumb luck or serendipity or whatever, this job appeared that was for a small technology commercialization firm in Calgary, where we are a startup incubator and a consulting firm to new businesses. And so I applied there, I got hired, and I've been working there for 7 months now. And it's just awesome because we do exactly that. We take in early stage startups, we build them up, and then we sell them for tens of millions of dollars.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's such a cool job.
I also work as a consultant. So if entrepreneurs are trying to launch a new product, and because we get a lot of tech entrepreneurs in Calgary, lots of engineers that have created great tech products, and they're not necessarily...
It's a pretty big tech scene in Calgary, right?
Huge. Yeah. And it's really easy to get to California too. Everyone's always flying between here and San Francisco. So there's really close ties to Silicon Valley and the whole startup scene there. And so they'll come in with a great tech idea that they need help with the business side and the marketing. And I'll do a lot of that for them. And so that's cool. What I do now.
That is so cool.
Yeah. It's like the real life Dragon's Den. That's how I describe it.
That's awesome. Well, that's a pretty cool journey from thinking you wanted to be a chemist to now being a dragon.
I know, it's weird, huh? Like you never know.
You never know where you're gonna end up. I mean, I went to film school. I tell people that all the time. Like, I thought I was going to be a filmmaker, guys. I literally thought that was a job I could do.
I know, and I can't believe that because I remember reading your blog and your whole journey, and now it's in a totally different place.
Totally different. I'm literally in a different place. I live in Toronto. I work in digital marketing. Like, I could not have predicted this 5 years ago, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. So kind of moving on, I think that is so awesome and inspirational for people, especially for people that, millennials that go to school thinking they want to do one thing and then get into the workforce and realize, oh crap, that's not at all what I thought it would be. I want to do something else. And lots of people get scared. They feel like they should stick with whatever job they first get.
They're terrified.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, maybe it's me, maybe it's not, And it is a scary leap of faith to like go back to school or just try a totally different career path. But I think ultimately, and I swear by this, if you're unhappy at your job, you're going to be unhappy in your life. So you can't waste that time.
And you can't be afraid. I used to have that all the time at the Faculty of Engineering. These kids were flunking out of engineering and they'd be crying in my office that their life was over. And I'm like, this is just one job.
I know. You were just at the beginning, guys.
I'm like, you can do anything. You're 19.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened to you yet.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I think that's super awesome. But I think one of the other really cool things that you talk about on your blog that I just don't know any other female personal finance bloggers that are currently talking about this is kind of investing and your experience with investing. Because I mean, for me, I'm all about like budgets and saving, but when it comes to investing, I'm still a super noob, and I hate that I don't really know anything about investing. I've read lots of books about investing, but it just does not sink in. So it's something that I think, I don't know, it kind of terrifies me, and I'm sure it kind of scares a lot of other millennial women.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think it's
what you said
cool.
Is always what I hear.
Yeah.
That's totally the voice of it. And I think what makes investing so scary is there isn't a guarantee. When you make a budget or you save, like you're dealing with really distinct numbers. You know exactly what's going to happen. And with investing, you don't. There's still like this crazy chance that it will go either way, which is actually probably why I like it so much. Now that I've recited my story in one place, I'm like, oh, no wonder this is my thing. Because I'm like, let's just go and see what happens. And that's how I approached investing. But I remember like I wanted to get into investing probably when I was like 22 or 23 years old. And I was dating this guy at the time, and I told him, I'm like, yeah, like I'm getting interested in money. I think I should start investing. And he told me, you don't have enough money to invest. You need like $50,000 to get in the stock market. It's only for rich people. Ooh. And I was like, Yeah, and I was like, oh, and I kind of was like taken aback, and I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have enough money. And so I actually didn't even start investing until I think I was 24 or 25, and it took me $1,000 to get
in. I like honestly, like when I was just starting out too, I honestly thought you had to be like have at least 50K in the bank or something crazy, or at least $10,000 to even consider like opening up a mutual fund, because I'm like, you have to have money. I don't know. So I don't have enough money to invest, but I'll learn about it later. And then, I didn't start doing it until a little bit later in my 20s.
And I think that's what holds a lot of people back, because there is this perception that rich people invest, therefore you have to be rich to invest. But it's actually the opposite. You have to invest in order to be rich. And so I do want all young people to know that you can get started in the stock market with as little as like $1,000. As soon as you have that first 1,000, you can go open a brokerage account and you can start investing. And as for demystifying it, like you do have to be comfortable with seeing your money go up and down. And some people don't have the stomach for that, and some people never will. Like if you need to put your money somewhere and always see it go up, and any kind of dip makes you sick, you might not have the stomach for the stock market. And that's okay. Some people, they just don't want to take on that risk. But I think the average person can handle a few ups and downs because the rewards are so tremendous.
And I guess the key is also never invest money that you need, right? Like, that's just kind of a basic. It's like, if you need that money to pay rent, don't buy some stocks with it and hope that it'll double in time your rent's due.
Because there's no get rich schemes either. Like sometimes people ask me that, or they ask for like hot stock tips and I don't have them. Like there's no secrets. I've done all the work now. I have the MBA in finance, and I can tell you there's no like secrets. The people that do get rich on their investments are either gambling recklessly, or they know something, or they have a strategy. Like I think to someone that doesn't understand the markets or understand investing, a lot of it looks like it's just chance, but it's not. There's a lot of strategies there, and a lot of those big wins, even if people were taking those big risks, they did something to hedge or protect their underside. So if it didn't work out, it wouldn't be a huge loss. And when you're a new investor, you don't necessarily know how to execute those kinds of strategies, or you don't have the resources to protect yourself that way. And that's like one of the reasons for early investors, I just suggest like index ETFs.
Yes, which is actually something that I want to get into, because I think most of the money I have that's invested is in mutual funds, but I actually just recorded a podcast episode with Barry Choi from Money We Have, and
he's awesome. I met him.
He's all about index funds, and so we talked about that, and then afterwards he's like, I will give you this book that will explain everything. I'm like, I think I'm gonna do this now. He sold me real hard. I'm like, I'm gonna do it now. I'm gonna take all my money out and put it in this. Awesome.
Well, if you've tried mutual funds, you're already kind of accustomed to seeing the balance change every day. And honestly, that's the hardest part. Once you get past that, you're ready. And index ETFs aren't going to bite. Nothing that's going to happen.
And it seems pretty simple. Like it's not overcomplicated. I think the thing with the stock market and all that stuff, that like, especially for someone like me, it still sounds a bit scary, because it does seem like it's higher risk. But I guess before you invest in anything, that's when you kind of look at, and there's a bunch of charts like online. It's like, what is your comfort level with risk? Conservative, blah, blah, blah.
And there are stocks that are less riskier than others. For example, the first company I think I ever bought was General Electric. And I bought their stock at $19 a share, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I think I actually Googled something like safest stock to buy.
I love it.
And General Electric will come up. And so I was like, cool, that's it. And I dumped my $1,000 in that. And like now when I look in it, I'm like, oh, obviously General Electric is a blue chip dividend stock. It's been around for over 100 years. It's never missed a dividend payment. It's so diversified. When you buy General Electric, it's like you're buying an ETF or a mutual fund, because they have business in every industry. So it's a really well diversified, super safe company that pays you a steady dividend. Like it's it's a great stock. And so, but I didn't know that when I started. I just Googled super safe stocks and that was it. But now like looking at it, I'm like, wow, that was a great pick. That was awesome. And so it worked out well. So there are stocks out there that are quite safe. And then there's other ones that are not, but you can invest directly in companies and stocks and still see the kind of safety and returns that you do in a mutual fund or ETF, or even better, without putting your money at more risk.
So I guess what you need to do before starting anything is do your research. So what direction would you point people that are kind of interested in going this way to start like research?
Well, the first place is going to be my site.
Of course. Plug.
Because that's actually what I'm working on now, is developing resources to kind of demystify the stock market for young people that are looking to get into investing. And I do have quite a few posts on it, and I'm looking at putting it together more coherently in an e-course that I'm hoping to launch maybe next month.
Awesome.
But that's going to have the resources to really help you out. And then this other places you can go is honestly to just take out a book on investing. There's some really great ones out there. I love The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. That was one of the best ones that I've read. And then also it's just getting familiar with the market by visiting sites like Yahoo Finance and Investopedia.
And just like create that habit and make it part of your day to keep on top of things.
Yeah, and it totally depends like how into it you want to get. Like one of the things I always suggest people do is just create a fake stock portfolio. And you can do this on any of those sites like Market Watch or whatever. You can just add stocks to your watch list and just watch them for like 3 months or 6 months. Like I created this for a year before I got in the stock market.
Oh, really?
And I just watched a portfolio of fake money for a whole year. And that kind of gives you an idea of what will happen. Like it doesn't feel the same as real money. You'll treat your real money totally different, but at least you get used to seeing you're like, which of these did really good? Which of these did really bad? Okay, why? And you can take a look at it. And there's no risk in that because it's just pretend. And that's one of the best
That's a great starting point.
To the stock market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. Well, I think we'll kind of wrap it up. Thank you so much for being on the program. I feel like I know so much more about you and investing. I'm kind of excited. I'm going to look at all of those spreadsheets that you have on your website right now.
So many
I'm so curious because I also kind of just love looking at how other people budget or just like organize their money, because I know everyone has their own different way. You know, it's personal finance because it's personal. I know I probably do it way different than other people. So I'm kind of excited to see what you got.
I think mine get pretty technical compared to some other ones out there.
Well, fair enough. I think you've earned that right with a financial MBA. You can do what you want. Okay, awesome. Well, everyone, if you want to check out Bridget's blog, make sure you do. It's moneyaftergraduation.com. And she's also on Twitter. And I love your tweets, by the way. I think you're really great. Money After